yourself a cold one.
They strike 'em, huh?
And listen to Ross Tucker break down the top college prospects on another tasty edition of The College Draft.
Yeah, it's Daddy Soda time here on the College Draft Podcast, presented, of course, as always, by DraftKings. You guys know the deal. Whatever you're placing a little bit of wager on, whether it's NBA, NHL, WNBA, just use the code Ross over at my beloved DraftKings Sportsbook. I am Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman. You know that. 5 teams, 7 years. Those of you that check out our social media clips, either at Ross Tucker Pod or at Ross Tucker NFL, pretty much whatever you're on, right? TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it. You can see the teams I played for, the helmets, the whole deal behind me. You can also always check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL, which is where my co-host of the College Draft Podcast first gained his popularity and notoriety as the football czar over at Football Game Plan on YouTube, which is his Twitter handle as well, at FBallGamePlan. You know how much I love his draft guide, footballgameplan.com/2024 draft guide. OTAs around the NFL start today, which means we'll start to get reports out about rookies that are looking good or not. Well, Emory has all of them already written down, already has the scouting reports. So if there's somebody for your team that you're not as familiar with, Emory is, and Emory has it for you. Footballgameplan.com/2024 draft guide. You know what's funny, Emory? I'm just going to bring this up real quick before we're in the middle of our series of where we talk about every draft choice for every team, and a couple of Emory's favorite undrafted free agent players for each of the teams as well. It's funny, Emory, I write a column every week for the 33rd team, and I think you'll appreciate this. But my column this week is about how, people think that it's like a simple equation and that every player that doesn't have a successful NFL career means that was a bad pick by the team, or it doesn't even have a good career just for that team, that means they definitely were a bad pick. That was a terrible job by the GM, horrible choice. I don't think people have any idea, and that's why I'm writing the article, how many factors go into whether or not a player is successful or not. And really their entire career, like the situations, the circumstances, listen, Tom Brady would have been great no matter what. Do I think he would have been Tom Brady if he got drafted by the Redskins? No, I don't. I think he still would have been good, but not this good. Same with Mahomes. Didn't go to Andy Reid and have like Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill and those guys. Do I still think Mahomes would have been an excellent quarterback? Yeah. Do I think he would have done what he's done to this point? No. Where you land, the coaches, the players around you, it's not as simple, Emory, as what this guy became or this guy's draft pick. That's how good of a player they were. There's a lot of other factors involved in the ultimate success or failure of a player.
And it even goes to the college ranks. How many stories you hear of, so-and-so signed a 5-star player, and then you get out there and you say, like, wow, like this the 5-star guy, or man, they're really doing this guy wrong, or this guy just can't, he really maxed out at high school, or whatever the case may be. It's never just one thing. And then you hear about the walk-on to the starter that becomes an All-American, right? So it's no different in the college game, and there are a ton of factors that go into play.
Really is. Let's dive into the NFC South today. And again, we think it's important to talk about the draft choices for each team. I know a lot of people already moving on to the prospects for next year. We got time for that. We do. I mean, we'll be able to do that in July and August to lead up into the college football season. For now, let's talk about the guys that actually got drafted and Emory's favorite undrafted free agents, because a lot of times those guys end up lighting it up in preseason, and we're talking about them in August, and we talked about them here in May and June. For the Falcons, we've talked quite a bit about Michael Penix Jr. as a player and him going to Atlanta with the 8th overall pick. How about their next 2 picks? Both the linemen, Emory, they traded up with Arizona to get the D tackle out of Clemson. I don't even know how to say that guy's name. And then in the 3rd round, they got Braylon Trice, the super productive edge rusher from Washington that didn't test as well as maybe people were thinking or hoping. Tell me about these 2 guys, Emory.
Rook Oro, I feel like that's how it's pronounced. Out of Clemson is a solid defensive end. Going this high to me is, maybe they see him as a depth piece, rotational piece, because that's kind of what I graded him as. But Braylon Trice, I thought, was a steal in round 3. He was my number 7 edge rusher. Again, you touched on it. Super productive, highly consistent. They needed someone within that rotation to come off the edge, and I thought they grabbed a good one in Trice out of Washington, who really put together a fantastic year. I thought he would have gone earlier on day 2, but they still get him nonetheless and solve some of those questions about why they didn't take an edge rusher. Well, they got one here in Trice.
You know what's really interesting to me about the D tackle from Clemson? It's almost like, and I'm not suggesting they did this, but they got so much criticism for the Penix Jr. pick, Emory, and the fact that they could have taken Byron Murphy, they could have taken any of those D linemen. It's almost like all day Friday they were like, yo, we got to get some D linemen. We got to get, especially a D tackle, because then they trade up to get Aurora, and then they take Braylon Trice in the 3rd round. Then they weren't done. I mean, they went heavy on the defensive side of the ball. Day 3, their next 3 picks, they got Brandon Dorius, a D tackle from Oregon. I don't know that much about. J.D. Bertrand, linebacker from Notre Dame. And then Jace McClellan, running back from Alabama. I did one of Jace's games last year. Those 3 guys, Emory.
Well, Dorless is my number 1 5 tech, so I love that pick. And I thought this dude was sensational on film because he has a weird built body, kind of built like a catcher, kind of squatty, like long legs, short torso, but he's super disruptive and does a fantastic job of playing the run, applying pressure in the passing game, and playing the run going east and west. So he's not only able to play it downhill, he does a good job in using his eyes to follow the play. Hands are where they need to be to disengage from a block and go and make the play in the backfield or at the line of scrimmage. So I thought this was a super pick. I feel like he's going to be a very disruptive force up front. And you saw them develop that rotation within their defensive line. So that's going to be interesting to watch play out during the training camp and in the preseason, how the rotation goes. But I'm a big fan of what he did on film at Oregon. And McClellan, it's a crowded backfield. I feel like special teams is going to have to be his way to go. And we'll see if that works out for him moving forward. And Bertrand, I thought, is a good rotational inside backer, had productive season at Notre Dame as well. So depth was the focus here for Atlanta. We'll see how it all works out.
Last 2 picks, both in the 6th round. Casey Washington, a wide receiver from Illinois. Illinois had a bunch of guys get drafted. I had that Isaiah Adams in the 3rd round on my show. They obviously had Tip Ryman, the tight end, went in the 3rd round. Illinois, like sneaky, has more guys than you realize the last few years. And then Zion Logue, a D tackle from Georgia. I don't know. He must have been hurt when I did the Georgia Vanderbilt game. I don't remember this guy. I don't remember Zion Logue in that game. Maybe I'm just misremembering. But your thoughts on those 2 guys, Emory?
Yeah, I think Logue does a great job of giving linebackers a chance to make a play, because he's such a gap occupier. I like to say he was actually my number 5 nose tackle. I know I only graded 10 nose tackles. That was a really light position this year, juxtaposed to last season. But I thought he did a really good job doing his job and letting those linebackers of Georgia roam free. So again, defensive line was the focus. We'll see how it plays out for the Falcons on defense this season.
Undrafted free agents that jumped out to you, Emory.
Remember we talked about the next Brock Purdy? Well, they signed him, John Paddock, the quarterback of Illinois. So I was a big fan of that pick, that acquisition. And how about this? How about Jaden Price, the corner out of North Dakota State? The reason why I was a big fan of him, I tweeted about him before the draft and how not only he's playing outside corner, but he has very good return skills. So special teams, we know, is a way for undrafted rookie free agents to make their name known and make a presence. And I think that's where he can have a chance to impress people out there, in preseason.
Boy, I mean, I don't know if I'm Paddock if I would have gone to the place where Michael Penix just got drafted, but he probably didn't have that many options. Honestly, it's not that bad of a place because Penix going to be on the roster, so there's a practice squad spot potentially up in the air for a quarterback. All right, before we move on, Emory, to the Carolina Panthers, I'm going to move on to what I had several of this weekend, Labatt Blue Light, with my friends, living life to the power of we, always enjoy responsibly, beer, Labatt USA, Buffalo, New York. By the way, Emory, before I forget, the Labatt Blue Light guys loved you talking about it last week with your trip to Waterloo. I sent them the clip. I was like, check out my guy Emory. They're like, I love it. All right, how about the Carolina Panthers? And I don't really remember. I mean, we got to go through this again. I don't remember what you said or how you felt about Xavier Legette, their first-round pick. They traded up to get him last pick of the first round.
Big fan of his game right now. He was my number 5 split in with an 80 grade. So I had essentially a first round grade on him. He goes in round 1. They had to trade back to get him. Love the pick because he is someone that can be instant offense. So he's a catch and run threat. Physical presence gives them a bona fide number 1 in my opinion. And now it gives them another option to grow with their young quarterback, Bryce Young.
Round 2 and 3, they took Jonathan Brooks, the running back from Texas, and Trevin Wallace, the linebacker from Kentucky. I know you are the running back guru, Emory. Your thoughts on Brooks?
It'll depend on, where he is in recovery. That's the biggest question because Brooks, to me, unless he's ready to go year 1 or, week 1, then this is a pretty premium pick for Brooks. So maybe you're expecting him to come in maybe week 6 or whatnot. He starts on the PUP list and then you slowly bring him along. But I felt like at pick number 2 to get a running back coming off of an ACL injury was a bit questionable, although Brooks is a really good player. But, and it speaks to what they think about, what they did last year with Miles Sanders. And then he went ahead and signed Rashad Penny. So I just don't know about the pick here, not the player, but more so the pick. But Wallace was a big-time addition, in my opinion. My number 4 inside linebacker, 77.5 grade. So fairly good grade on him for a second. That's like a high second rounder. They got him in round 3. He's disciplined, great fundamentals, never going to get you beat. And right now he's behind Shaq Thompson. So it does give you a guy that can come in, sub-package player that can play and play smart and help you stay honest on defense.
Round 4. I think we talked about him when we talked about tight ends. Jatavion Sanders, the tight end from Texas.
I thought they doubled up here because he kind of gives you a little bit what Tommy Tremble gives you, although Tremble is much more explosive. I feel like they both play the same game, although Tremble may be a little bit better of a blocker. So now you kind of can use both on the field at the same time. Sanders is a very good receiver. It seems like that's his sole focus. Hey, I just want to catch passes. Hey, more power to you, right? Because he's going to an offense where they needed some help in the passing game with some options. So you get both him and Trimble on the field at the same time, you can create some problems along with Xavier Legette. So I like this pick here for Carolina.
All right, let's get to the rest of their picks. Chow Smith-Wade, a cornerback from Washington State. Jaden Crumedy, a D tackle from Mississippi State. Michael Barrett, linebacker, Michigan.
Here's the thing. Chow Smith-Wade is a fantastic corner. He was my number 4 slot corner, 75 grade. First thing I have notes here I'm looking at, closes really well on the football and receiver, able to make the play difficult for both the QB and the wideout. Very good fluid athleticism and ability to make the play on the ball. That, to me, is essentially what you want. Someone that makes the decision difficult for the QB. I feel like getting better in the secondary, adding more depth there is really where the Panthers could grow. Again, we saw them move on from some people, in off season, so they needed to backfill those positions. And I thought they got a good one with Charles Smith-Wade.
What about undrafted guys that jump out to you, Emory?
This is where I thought they cleaned up. Jalen Coker, fantastic receiver out of Holy Cross.
Yeah.
Had a really good all-star game circuit, both Hula Bowl and East-West Shrine Bowl. Surprised he went undrafted. Jaden Shurden, obviously, is one of my favorite undrafted free agent acquisitions. We talked about him ad nauseum coming out of Monmouth. Explosive game breaker in the backfield. I also feel like he has a chance to make an impact as a kickoff return specialist. And you look at Willie Drew, the corner out of Virginia State. Now, they have him listed as an outside corner. I thought he did a little bit at the Senior Bowl to showcase that he could stay on the outside despite coming from Division II. And if you remember, I was on that broadcast earlier in the season when they played Norfolk State that had that wild ending that went viral. Willie Drew had a fantastic game in that game, had an interception, had a couple key pass breakups. So he has good ball skills, has the explosiveness, has the athleticism. So I thought they did a great job in acquiring a lot of these tremendous undrafted rookie free agents.
Let's get to the New Orleans Saints, Emory. And they had an interesting draft. They took Talise Fuaga in the first round. I'm a big fan of his. Round 2, Kool-Aid McKinstry. And I guess, he went 41 overall, but coming into the year, he was thought of as a top 10 pick. Guess I'm curious, Emory, what happened there?
He didn't work out at the combine, and everybody just forgot that he was a very good player. It makes no sense. He should have went first round, but the Saints got themselves a steal in round 2. I had an 81 grade on him, so a very high grade on this corner. Now you look at their secondary with him. You have Marshawn Lattimore. You also have what they were able to develop in Paulson Adebo and also Alontae Taylor. So they have a legit, quartet at corner that's just outstanding. I think McKinstry is going to be a star from day one.
Round 5, they had 3 picks. Spencer Rattler, the quarterback from South Carolina. You and I talked about him a lot. You were a big fan. I think it's so interesting, Emory, that you're now either like a first-round pick if you're a quarterback or you're day 3. There's no in between. They're either saying that you're going to be the starter and you're going to get taken in the first round, or you're the developmental guy. I just don't know how many more second, third, and fourth round pick quarterbacks we're going to see in the next few years. I think that's kind of, which by the way, there's people that like Spencer Rattler more than Bo Nix. And Bo Nix goes 12 overall, and Spencer Rattler goes 150 in the 5th round. It's unbelievable.
And listen, I like him better than Bo Nix and also J.J. McCarthy. So I was shocked to see him go in round 5, especially if you're looking at teams like the Giants and Raiders consistently bypassing on the Spencer Rattler. So this was a huge pickup for New Orleans. And I do feel like the preseason is tailor-made for someone like this to really stand out and put a lot of pressure on Dennis Allen. Like, hey, man, play your best players. This is what happened last year when you lost a locker room with Jameis Winston. If the players are telling you, man, this kid over here is nice, and the offense is sputtering, you better put Rattler in and save your job. Did a good job last year getting your first winning season as a coach. But if Rattler is proving that he's the guy, just go ahead and start the better guy.
You think Spencer Rattler might be better than Derek Carr this year?
Yes. We saw with Derek Carr. The difference between Derek Carr and Jameis Winston and Spencer Rattler or any other quarterback is the pocket presence. Rattler will get the football out and not take sacks. Carr took a lot of sacks that was self-inflicted or just got rid of the football quickly to an underneath option as opposed to going through his progressions or even just using his athleticism. Carr has very good athleticism to get out of dodge and make things happen, but he never uses that. I truly believe Carr, since he broke his ankle, his best season when he led the Raiders to the playoffs, but he didn't play in that playoff game, he hadn't been the same since. He used to be able to take off and use his athleticism to buy time, but now he just has the pocket presence of a sundial and takes a lot of avoidable sacks. And so Rattler, to me, at least gets the ball out. Like I've said this before, Rattler plays a lot like how Baker Mayfield played with the Bucs last year. So I feel like, hey man, if you're taking sacks and you're killing drives, you got to go with the better guy.
Next 4 picks were Bub Means, receiver from Pitt, Jalen Ford, linebacker, Texas, Christian Boyd, D-tackle, Northern Iowa, and Josiah Aziram, offensive tackle, Eastern Kentucky.
I thought, Bub Means was a fantastic pick. He was my number 2 inside wide receiver. Physical presence gives them a lot of what they had in Michael Thomas, a guy that's not afraid to bang on the inside and work also in a contested catch situation. Aziram, to me, had a very underrated week at the Senior Bowl. And on my small school only mock draft on CBSSports.com, I actually had him going to the Saints. So this one kind of worked out for New Orleans. And I thought this was a really good pick. So Boyd, we talked about him before. He had a fantastic week at the East-West Shrine Bowl and the Hula Bowl. And so this is someone from Northern Iowa, very good FCS conference in the Missouri Valley Conference, played well in the All-Star game circuit, got himself drafted. So the Saints, as of right now, are killing the draft as we are going through these picks.
Undrafted guy, Emory?
They had a bunch, man. Mason Tipton of Yale was a fantastic receiver, had a really good college gridiron showcase or Tropical Bowl. Kyle Sheets, college gridiron showcase. We talked about him a lot out of Slippery Rock. They were able to grab him. You look all the way down at Isaiah Stallbird, the outside linebacker from South Dakota State. Very good athlete, running chase backer. So I thought the Saints not only killed it in the drafting, but undrafted free agents as well as Dalen Hooker of Colorado State, the H-back, and Jacob Cabody from the University of Louisiana. Here's the thing, Ross, about Cabody. He was in that backfield at Texas A&M with Jashawn Corbin and the kid down in Miami.
A-Chain.
So they had a bunch of those guys. And he's 6'2", 225 that has receiver-like ability to go deep down the field and make plays on the ball because they had a really good college gridiron showcase as well. So, listen, the Saints did a fantastic job in the undrafted rookie free agent market. This was the A-plus draft for me.
All right, so for the Bucs, we talked about Graham Barton, their first-round pick. I like their day 2 picks, Emory. Chris Braswell, the edge from Alabama, Tyke Smith, the safety from Georgia, Jalen McMillan, the wide receiver from Washington.
Yeah, those are 3 excellent picks and could be potential starters for Tampa Bay, especially someone like Smith who could probably step in right now and start at safety. Braswell, situational rusher, puts a lot of pressure on a former first-round pick in Tryon Shoyinka, who I was a big fan of, who's my number 1 edge rusher when he came out. So I like the fact that they were able to get potential starters. McMillan could start, push, a lot of Chris Godwin, could be essentially Chris Godwin's replacement. So, yeah, they knocked it out the park on day 2 with those selections.
Day 3, they took Bucky Irving, the running back from Oregon, Elijah Klein, guard from UTEP, and Devin Culp, a tight end from Washington. Man, Washington had a lot of guys get drafted.
They had a ton of guys get drafted. Irvin is going to be fascinating to watch, because they have an interesting backfield. You got Chase Edmonds, who I'm a big fan of. You also have Sean Tucker, kid out of Syracuse, working himself back from injury. So you got some options behind Rashad White, who was fantastic last year, but Irvin gives him some agility, some wiggle. It'll be fascinating to see how he's utilized as a kickoff returner. We talked about that a lot because we know about the rule change. So here's an opportunity for someone like Irvin to make an immediate impact.
Anything on undrafted free agents for the Bucs to wrap things up?
Marcus Banks out of Mississippi State, a guy that can play corner or safety, excellent cover skills. gives you what you want on the back end. They had a really good secondary at Mississippi State, and he was one that really stood out to me the most. And I would also bring up someone like Ramon Jefferson, who's older because he was at Sam Houston State forever, transferred to Kentucky. But another one of these guys, he's built more like Sean Tucker. So we'll see how he works out here during camp.
I love it, Emory. The keg is kicked. We are all tapped out.
Thanks for tuning in to College Draft. Make sure to also check out the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Even Money, and Fantasy Feast, all on the DraftKings Network, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.